You're listening to the Savoir Faire audio experience.
Are you ready? The bass be louder.
The Savoir Faire experience is your guide to everything that has to do with lifestyle. From dating, rides, style, and entertainment. All brought to you by the editor of Savoir Faire magazine, Robert White. Anything goes on this audio experience. So, let's go.
It's still the best.
All right, guys, thank you for listening to the Savoir Faire audio experience. Another episode we're kicking off today. I'm super excited. I always like having musical artists and bands and things like that on the podcast because we learn so much about the music industry and different things from them. And today we have the lead singer of Spark of Life. This is Steven Jennings. What's up, sir? How's it going?
Doing great. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, man. Thanks for finding some time to chat with us today. I know life's kind of hectic over there. You're based in California, right?
Yeah, we're in Southern California, Los Angeles. I mean, we live in a suburb just outside of Los Angeles.
Oh, solid. Now, are you guys only performing on the West Coast? Are you kind of nationwide? Where are you at now?
No, we have a bit of a history, a touring history. We've toured all over, and we are back to doing it. We've been actually out on the road quite a bit this year. We toured the Midwest. We didn't quite get to the East Coast, but we're going to be out there next year, and we're also doing Europe and a bunch of places next year when the record comes out. So we're all over the place.
Yo, that's awesome. I'm definitely going to try to check you guys out when you come to the East Coast. I was listening to the new drop, the new singles, looking at your EPK and stuff today. So I'm pretty in tune with what you guys got going on over there.
Cool. Yeah.
Man, I think, like, Steve, just by yourself, you've got a hell of a history in music. And so I wanted to kind of dive into just some stuff there. I know this is a band kind of thing for you, but, because I'm connecting with you today, maybe you can give me some of your personal backstory and just kind of how this all led from you getting into music and then eventually Spark of Life kind of coming together and becoming a band.
Yeah, I mean, I probably started off like most kids. I was young. I was getting into skateboarding, and I definitely had a bunch of that counterculture kind of stuff going on where I was meeting up with friends who were also getting into kind of the same things. But I had an older brother who was into punk rock, and he's 10 years older than me. And so just by proxy, I just ended up with so many records that probably at the time I didn't understand, a lot of Dead Kennedys, like early 80s, hardcore and punk rock stuff. And I was a little kid. And I grew up across the street from a guy named Scott Radinsky, who has had a successful career in a lot of things. Ultimately, he ended up becoming a major league pitcher for the Dodgers and the Chicago White Sox and a bunch of other stuff. But before he was that, he was a singer for a band called Scared Straight, which was this straight edge, like, hardcore punk band out here in Southern California. And there's a whole scene that kind of revolved around that called Nardcore, from Oxnard, and that was what my brother was into, and I grew up, like I said, across the street from Scott. So I was 7, 8 years old watching, all these punk bands playing, and I was in love with it immediately. And I just, obviously when you have an older brother who's into those types of things, you kind of just follow him around and you kind of get into the same thing. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of where I started. I got into all of that, but then when I got into high school, I kind of wanted my own bands, and there was like the scene had kind of changed, and hardcore had gotten a little bit more metal, a little bit heavier, wasn't as positive, I guess a lot of people might say. And I listened to, actually, it's funny because I tell this story a lot. I listened to a band called Strife, which was from a town right next to us, right from where we were growing up, and it kind of just opened up this whole world to this straight edge hardcore music, and I just knew from that moment on, I was like, this is this is it. Like I'm just going to skateboard and listen to punk rock and hardcore for the rest of my life. And I was like, this is it. So that's kind of where it went. And then, then the typical got together with some buddies in high school and started an absolutely horrible hardcore band. But just had fun, kind of cut our teeth on that. And then as we got a little bit older, towards got just out of high school or graduated, we were like, man, let's just do this for real, because we're probably not gonna have real jobs. So that's kind of where it went. I mean, and there's a lot of turns in there, but that's kind of it.
No, that's super cool, man. No, I like. How old are you, Steve?
43.
Okay, so I'm 45, but we basically grew up in a very interesting genre. Like, I had an older uncle. Okay, so I was born to like a teen parent or whatever, but I had an uncle that was 5-10 years older than me, that was in the same scene that your brother was in, skating, punk rock, like all of that stuff. So I grew up kind of the same way that you did a little bit, with this kind of rowdy kind of punk rock scene and skating all over town. And like, that was kind of a thing when I was like young. Right. So that's kind of unique that we have some of that. So when you're talking about some of that stuff, it's reminiscing memories for me too.
I wouldn't have it any other way. It was the best, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It was a little bit of a wild lifestyle, but I mean, at the same time, like eventually you grow out of it. So, and I also have a music background too, but my different direction. I went into like country pop and moved to Nashville and did some stuff there. So,
okay.
Yeah, well, very cool, different. Man.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, like I said, that whole time of my life, I mean, just the freedom. Definitely got in trouble. There's it is a wild.
Well, you got in trouble. That means you actually got caught.
I got caught. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I never got caught.
Yeah, I probably took it too far on some things. And yeah, I had to learn some lessons.
Yeah, understandable, but it builds good character in a human in general. I think, like, you do
Indeed.
learn some things, limitations, and now being a little bit older, you're kind of like, okay, I'm so glad I had those moments. They're cool and fun, but like, I'm glad I'm over it.
Oh yeah, there's you got to, after you get through it, you look back and you're just like, I can't believe I did that, right? Like,
yeah, right.
Then you have kids and you're like, oh, don't be anything like me. Like, we're not.
Oh yeah,
we're not gonna do that.
I'm in the same boat. That's crazy. Yeah, so I'm really interested. Like, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, man. Finish your.
No, that was it.
Oh, cool. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of let you know that we're kind of on the same path in life, which is kind of unique. So yeah, I mean, obviously, you have a great history, and I looked up, some stuff about you, knowing that we were going to connect today. But obviously, some of these band members that you have in your band, like some of these guys got great history too. So maybe you could talk to me a little bit about just kind of the start of Spark of Life and the camaraderie you guys have as a band, and give me some of that feedback.
Yeah, Spark of Life is old friends. This guy, and we're the main guys, which is this other guy, Nick Piscatelli, is the guitar player. We started the band like we got out of high school. Like I said, neither one of us are the brightest guys in the world, and we were just kind of like, we love playing music. We love writing music. He's an art director. That does all kinds of commercials, and he's very graduated from art colleges and all of that. So we've always had that kind of that connection, and so we started Spark of Life almost out of necessity to create, which was cool, and brought people on that were, his brother actually plays drums, so his brother is a couple years older than us, but so he had some like cool musical influence on us, and we were fans of his band, kind of like an older brother thing again. And, it was weird because we believed in what we were doing. We didn't sound a lot like our contemporaries. We weren't as heavy as some of the bands that were happening. We weren't a pop band. So we fell into this like weird area where we weren't heavy enough for the hardcore kids, but we weren't poppy enough for the pop punk kids. And, but we loved doing it. And just from there, it kind of like people gravitated towards it. I don't know if they gravitated towards it because they liked the music, or because we ran around on stage like maniacs and probably looked like, we were enjoying it and we believed in it. So by virtue of that, maybe they got caught up in the energy of what we were doing. But it was awesome. And from that, we got signed to a label, certainly not quickly, but got signed to a label. There's a label out here in California called Fat Records. And from Fat Records, there was a subsidiary of this label called Lorelei Records, run by this guy, the singer for a band called Good Riddance. And man, I begged and begged and begged him to listen to our music because I was such a huge fan of his band. And ultimately, they came out and played a show with us that I had begged them to come play and let us, be a part of it. And he signed us, and we were able to put out a record. And then from there, just we were able to get a booking agent. And man, our first tour, I mean, you talk about just like craziness, but like our first tour we were able to get with a band called Rise Against, which has gone on obviously to be, multi-platinum stadium band. Yeah. And great. And we became, just great friends. I mean, me and Tim, I was texting Tim this morning, the singer, we've become, it was just an unbelievable kind of experience to begin, our music career. And from there, like in terms of band members, I'm guessing maybe you want to know about one drummer in particular. Is that where we're,
I mean,
is that what you want to know about?
Yeah, you could drop a couple names. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I mean, so we from there we started another band with a couple guys from Rise Against, and then we also were in a band with a couple guys from this band called Ignite, which are pretty big, sort of influential bands out here in California. But long story short is, when we were getting ready to write a new record, I had written a song in my garage. I just wrote a song. It was actually for my wife. Wrote this song, and I'm friends with a guy named Fred Armisen.
Yeah, so, nobody knows who that is.
Casual, yeah.
Casual. Yeah, I understand.
So the funny part about that is that I've known Fred. I've known Fred for a long time now, and the original way that came to be, I had written a song because my daughter, she sees me being in a band and playing shows, and she wanted to write songs. So I had written some songs for her to sing. I just, kind of pop punky songs that I had written and, recorded in my garage, and she wanted to sing on them. And I always have hated the way that drums sound electronically. So I called Fred and I said, hey man, you mind coming and drumming on this song? So we went to a studio and recorded a song for my daughter that my daughter actually sang on. Yeah. And that's really how it kind of got going. And then I wrote this other song when we were getting ready to write a record, and I just hit him up because we didn't have a drummer at the time. Our drummer was, had life happening and just wasn't able to commit to anything. And so I just called Fred and said, hey man, we're doing this thing. Will you come drum? And, like, yeah, absolutely. 2 days later, we were in the studio recording, and, man, it was cool. And originally, when we were getting this record going, he was going to play. He was going to be in the band full time.
Oh wow!
But as things started to kind of take off a little bit for us, we started touring again. He couldn't commit to the time. He's got a day job, as you can imagine.
Yeah, right.
Where
he was TV unable every night. Understandable.
So he was unable to commit to doing it. But the cool part about Fred is that he's a music guy. I
knew that about him actually, that he was a hardcore music guy. So when I read the PR brief, whatever they sent me, right? But I saw the music video too that was out that you guys released that has him playing drums on it, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then when I read back through the connection, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. That's really cool. So now that you're telling me the story, I'm like, at the end of the day, it's cool that you know Fred, and I've been to the show, I've talked to him before or whatever, but at the end of the day, people are people, and he definitely is a solid musician in his own right. He's a very good musician.
No, it's cool. I mean, if you go back, I mean, like I said, people know him, Saturday Night Live and all of these other things. But if you go back and I mean, he's in a band called he cut his teeth in a band called Trenchmouth.
Yeah.
Which is, if you go back and listen to that, I mean, he'll probably tell you that it's not the greatest band in the world because he's, that's how rad he is.
Right.
But like, I mean, his drumming is phenomenal. He's not, they're not playing blues and, it's not lighthearted drum. I mean, he's playing in a straight up punk hardcore band.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a phenomenal musician. And, he still plays to this day. Obviously, he's playing and had done some songs with us. But if you go through his catalog of bands that he's played with and, and other things, and his comedy is centered around music, and playing these instruments. And he's a multi-instrumentalist. I mean, he can play the guitar, he can sing. It's so, well, yeah. And I knew that, obviously, being friends with him. But yeah, at the end of the day, he's just a guy who loves music, which is
right.
Which is so cool as being a musician. It's, to be able to sit down and, obviously the success that he's had is, speaks for itself. But first and foremost, like, I'm sure if you've talked to him, you would know he's a musician and he loves band stuff.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And I know he has a big, like, deep background in music and whatever, but I mean, that's pretty solid. Like, he was a good dude when I met him. It was brief. I went to the show. I ran into him. I said hi. We talked for like a minute, and that was it, and then was done. That was my only encounter. I don't have that.
Oh,
yeah, it was like literally
he's
like
I
kind of fanned out. I was like, "Yo, man," and he was like, "Hey, what's up?" And I just said hi, and that was it. And we kind of went our ways because I was at the show. I don't know. I got random tickets, so I went to the show and just ran into him in the hallway on the way in or something. And so we talked for a brief second. But
well, name drop me next time.
Yeah,
go,
yeah.
Hey. That's it, and then
if I go to the show again, I'll be like, "Yo, Steve told me to say hi," and he's like, "Who's?"
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. If you do that, he'll definitely sit and talk with you for a minute for sure.
Yeah, it's legit. I love that. So talk to me a little bit. What other things that I like about this longevity of a career you guys have had with music, and you especially, right? Like, give me like some behind the scenes kind of stuff too. Like, I'm very interested in, traveling and being on the road full time and kind of what that entails, but even some of those like hidden little stories that, you kind of brag about a little bit, like this happened or something crazy that would be kind of cool. What, give me one of those like road stories or the being in a band and traveling, like some kind of creative thing.
I guess this is a great opportunity to maybe brag about something. I think that, looking back at like being on the road and, continuing to be on the road, we're probably pretty boring in terms of, and looking at like how real, big bands sort of operate. I mean, I'm talking about like, the Rise Against of the world and those types of things.
Yeah.
Life on the road, I can't speak to their experience, but mine has always been, this is going to be so boring and I apologize, but like, I really enjoy the camaraderie of hanging out with my friends who are in the band, and get to seeing new places. Like I always treat it almost like a vacation. It is not a fucking vacation. I apologize, curse, but it is not a vacation. Like it is, it is definitely work and you're only spending a certain amount of time, but I really try to try and just enjoy that part of it. Because you're missing your family, you're missing things back home, and there are things going on that you're missing out on. So I really try to take advantage of like, and even if it's something as simple as like, hey, look, we're in St. Louis, right? And we're playing a show in St. Louis, and I'm just grateful for the opportunity, right? Like,
yeah, right.
And you just get to see these things that like most people don't get to see. And I think there's a lot of people who probably wish they could, go out and do those types of things. And dude, we're getting paid to go play a show in this place. Like, and so I just always look at it as an opportunity. But in terms of one of the exciting things that's happened on the road, this is once again going to bore you to death, but like, I think one of the coolest things that's happened, is we were playing a show. Where were we playing? Oh my God, it doesn't even matter. We were playing a show, and it had been like a long tour, and we were kind of tired, kind of exhausted. It was towards the end, and this kid came up, and he was talking about a song that we had written, and he basically pulled me aside and said, "Hey, I just want you to know that the lyrics of this song saved my life." And I said, "Okay." Like, and he told me, and I hope he's not listening to this or doesn't hear this, but he basically he just told me that the lyrics that I had written, he was contemplating committing suicide, thought his life was over, and he said, you know, that the lyrics he it saved his life. He didn't want to kill himself, you know, for at least that moment that he had heard the song, and it gave him hope. And then ultimately, you know, he got help and started going to therapy, but it was those lyrics of that song. And I thought, you know, from that moment on, like, even being out on the road, like, it really changed my perspective of how fans and people like perceive music, because it just has that ability to do that. So being out on the road, like, I take a lot of time to say hi to people, you know, especially if they want to say hi to me. And I'm not saying that everybody wants to say hi to me, but I always, that is like the biggest thing for me. It's like, I always take time that people want to come say hello and they want to ask you about things or talk to you, because what an opportunity that is to be able to connect with people. And to me, that's just what music and touring is. It's the connection of people. So
that's got to be part of it, man. Yeah. Cause I mean, you obviously start off with this chill band. You guys grow, you get the record label, you start traveling, the music's getting more popular, people are recognizing you, life-changing stuff happening for people that are listening to your lyrics. So like, that should almost be the job description. I even from the music world myself too, I'm like, it needs to be in the job description that yes, you're going to go travel, and yes, we're going to pay you, but listen, the fans come first 100% of the time, because those are the people that are truly making that dream come true for that artist, that band. So when you cold shoulder somebody, when you reject meeting somebody, when you don't acknowledge someone that's like freaking out over you, I feel like that's kind of like the wrong way to do it, right? So
100%.
yeah,
yes.
and it should be that way with every musical act. I mean, I would never want to be like, man, I've listened to this artist for 25, 30 years of my life. I'm well connected. Finally, something comes together and you get to go see them live. You get an experience with the band that's live, and then you get to like maybe even meet them, and then they give you the cold shoulder. It's like you just lost 30 years of like commitment. You know what I mean? Like, it's big things happen like that all the time.
Yep. And I won't even drop names, but it's happened to me. It's met
happened
some
to me.
Of my heroes.
Yeah, same.
And just been like, what in the hell?
Like, I spent all this time admiring your music, and you're just an ass.
Correct. Yeah. And that's a tough thing. So like, when I talk about like touring and those types of things, to me, like, it's all good. You know, there is the fun times. You know, who am I can't sit here and deny and pretend that I don't have fun. Right.
Oh, right.
But like, to me, it's always been about like, is that part of it? Like, I'm going out and like, people are connecting with the music. People are buying a ticket and coming up and singing the words to these songs. Like, it means something to them. Like, it meant something to us. So I take pride in that, you know, but like, it's not hard. It's the easiest thing in the world to be, if somebody's connecting with your music or this piece of art that I work to put out and they want to talk to you about it, I'll sit there, I'll talk about it forever. Like, that's the easiest thing in the world to do. And if it helps somebody do something, like, that's what got us into music, right?
Exactly.
Like, we listen to that and you take from that. I have taken so much more from music than I will ever be able to give back.
100%. I totally agree with you. Yep.
So that is, for me, that's it. Like, I don't, and this just popped into my head, and then I'll stop answering this question. But we played, we did a tour where we toured into Mexico, and I was like, man, I don't know how this is gonna go. You know, like, at the time, Mexico was, not that it isn't now, but like, really dangerous, had some dangerous things happening, you know, and I was like, man, do we really want to do this? And blah, blah, blah. But long story short, we went, and I remember the first show we played, this tiny little place, and all these kids who didn't speak English, obviously speaking Spanish, were screaming our lyrics back at us as we play.
Oh,
And
so cool.
and I was just like, and that was, this is drive this home, which is to say, like, music is just this universal language, right?
Yep.
And it didn't even matter that I don't speak Spanish.
Yeah.
And I just was like, I wonder how this is, how this is going to go. And it was one of the best experiences I've ever had playing music, to that thing, and these kids would come up and talk to us, and I couldn't understand a fucking word they were saying, right? But like, they wanted us to sign the records, and you sit there and have this conversation, and it's so like, you realize that people are people, right? Like,
Yep.
and it doesn't really matter that there's this whatever separates us, this line in the on the geographically
absolutely.
that separates us. And so to me, that's what touring has always been about. I always look forward to that. And my best times, like if you're asking for stories or something crazy, I don't know that I have that because I
No,
don't
I
drink.
think you nailed it actually, man. Like just hearing you kind of talk about this kid that was, thinking about end his life and your lyrics kind of came to him, and then just the camaraderie of the band. That's the good stuff to
Yeah,
me too. Just chilling and talking with the boys, because when you get a little bit older, that's not what we don't always get to just chill with the boys. Like
correct.
we got
Yeah, yeah.
responsibilities. So it's
Yep.
cool that you're on the road. Time is your job, obviously, but it's also good camaraderie between the band. And I want to
Yep.
pull some other things out here while I have you,
Yeah, yeah.
because obviously people, we were talking about lyrics and things like that. So the next phase is like, man, you guys got a new album coming out, Plagued by the
Yep.
Human Condition, which
Yep.
I should probably Google, but like, tell me from your perspective what like what this means to you, what this album's going to be about, and then we'll jump into No One Hates Me More Than Me, so I can learn more about that song and that single.
Yeah, yeah. Plagued by the Human Condition. It's a thought that's like been bouncing around my head for a couple of years. And I don't know if it's the times we live in. Like I'm not a political guy. And I don't really dive into that. Our music certainly doesn't really dive into that. But I feel like it just seems like that there is so much, there is so much folly to this life and to this existence, that we live, and we all make mistakes. Like everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect, and we say things that we probably shouldn't say, and maybe don't mean, that we say in the heat of the moment. We do things in the heat of the moment that maybe we don't mean, or out of character. If people saw you later, they would say, "Oh, that's Steve said that, but that doesn't seem like his character, or that seems out of character for him." And as people and as humans, I think that we do a lot of that, and we're sort of unforgiving in this day and age, where we kind of we crucify people for everything, and there is no forgiveness. But yet it's almost like at the same time, like we're built to make mistakes. Like nobody is perfect. And so this thought just kept bouncing around my head, which is to say, like, we're plagued by that, and it's just it's impossible to escape. We make mistakes.
Well, you can't escape it because you are human.
Correct. And so that was it. Like, it's just this whole thought, and like, I'm reflecting on my own life, obviously. I've done things that I'm not proud of. I've done things that have caused pain in other people's lives, caused pain in my own life. And, and it's all part of this human experience and this human condition. And so I just really liked the thought of plagued by the human condition. Like we're all here, like trying
No, I dig it.
Get through. So that's kind of what it was.
Is there a title track on this album? Is there a song called Plagued by the Human Condition, or that just
no?
Okay.
No, yeah. There's nothing. I name songs on things that amuse me and kind of like whims.
Okay.
Things I like. So I've been accused on this record, the label, and there are some singles where the label And you know, our publicists and things are like, dude, you gotta name it after the chorus. Like, you keep naming these songs
Completely random things.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
I
they
love it.
hate it. They hate it. So I did come around a little bit on this record because, you know, obviously we have some singles, and I was like, okay, like, look, I'll concede and I'll name a couple of them after the choruses, but I name records and things, you know, after, you know, I that's the creative side of me that, like, I love having that conversation. You know, I could talk for 2 hours about Plagued by the Human Condition. So I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely interested in like seeing what this does when it comes out, and learning and hearing some more of the songs. I mean, I listened to No One Hates Me More Than Me. I mean,
Yep.
excellent title, actually, because when I listened to the song, it was like, I get it. Like, I completely understand what's going on here. But from your perspective, talk to me about the song, what's happening, where the inspiration came from.
Well, I think that, you know, if you did know me better, or if you knew me, like, I am super hard on myself when I make mistakes, and I'm sure I'm not alone
Yeah.
in that assessment. And so I think that when I wrote this song is about making mistakes. This song is about regret. You know, as we've talked about, when you get older, you know, you look back on things, or things that you've done, or periods in your life where you're just not, you know, you didn't make the greatest decisions in the world, right?
Yeah.
But and that's what this song is. Like, this song is about looking back on things, or something, or, you know, I don't like to give it away once it's out in the world, right? Like, I know what it's about because I wrote it, but once it's out in the world, I hate to, like, dive into specifics, because it belongs to you. It belongs to the guy who thought my lyrics, you know, saved his life, right? Like, it doesn't matter what they mean to me. It belongs to the public. But if I'm giving a personal perspective of it, that's what it's about. It's about regret. It's about looking back at something, and realizing that you have made the mistake. And because I am hard on myself, you know, like, that's what made me call it that. Nobody hates me more than me. Like, there's nothing that somebody could say to me that's going to make me feel worse about the thing that I've done than I already feel about myself, you know?
Yeah. And I picked up on that same vibe, because I'm like you, man. I'm very harsh on myself. I'm a perfectionist. At least I feel like I am.
Yeah.
You know, I want things to be really, really good. And when they fail, or someone gives me their opinion of something that's not great, then I'm like, man, that really does get to me. Like, it's part of my soul. Right? Like, yeah, it cuts bad. So I like the idea that No One Hates Me More Than Me is like the single that came out from here, which makes sense. But then Plagued by the Human Condition, like, these two names really do play off each other extremely well. So it worked out very cool.
Yeah, you'll see, like, once the record is like, you know, we'll get you the record, obviously, but once the record is there, you'll see, like, that theme is just kind of goes throughout. I don't want to end on the negative of that. That song is also about, if you really listen to the words, that, you know, it says, even though I'm broken, I still want to feel. Yeah. And it's about having all of that stuff happen, but coming out the other side, and it's a positive outcome, you know, whether it's a mentally positive outcome, or, you know, you get the positive result that you want in the relationship or the job or whatever it is that you're doing. But there is always something to be grateful for in this world, and there's always something to be grateful for, and even learning from those mistakes. So I don't want to gloss over the positive aspect of the song, which is to say that bad shit happens. Yeah. But if you're grateful, if you can find a way to be grateful for something, that's always a positive outcome, no matter what the bad part is. But I want to say that too about it.
Yeah, solid, man. That's the quote of the day right there. That's definitely, you're going to see that on Facebook later as a quote on my pages. So
cool.
I appreciate you, Steve, man. Thanks for finding some time to, like, definitely connect and talk with us. I really appreciate it. Send some of that, like, warm LA weather to New York, because it's freezing here.
It's cold here. It's cold here today.
Oh man, it's burr out here today. Not right now. Like, we had that lake effect snow in Buffalo, and that I'm only a couple hours from there, so I'm feeling the temperature for sure.
Well, I don't. I don't envy that. It's and I'm lying. It's like 68 degrees here. So.
Solid, man. Well, thanks for a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
Awesome, man. I appreciate your time, and thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, sounds good. Have a great day.
You too.
All right, bye.
Thank you for listening to the show. Please take a minute to head over to www.savfair.com and subscribe to our publication.